Okay, so the iPad Mini 6 has been out since 2021, and despite all the crazy releases in between since then, this iPad still remains my favorite iPad of all time. And honestly, in a world of constant upgrades and power increases, features that promise to make your life better and all that, the iPad Mini 6 simply does not compare by feature set, yet it still remains an absolute fan favorite. The main difference comes down to one single thing all of the other iPads simply do not have by comparison, and in the sea of computer replacing tablets, the iPad Mini is just that, mini. The fact is, every iPad recently released, even dating back to like 2018, are all sort of positioned to be computer replacing tablets that are all encompassing. You've got upgraded screens, more RAM, more power, thinner chassis, and all these other amazing things that I absolutely love. But even despite all that, people like myself seem to really gravitate towards the iPad Mini because it's not trying to be a computer replacement. It seems to be the only tablet still trying to be just that, a tablet. The iPad Mini 6 really isn't meant for any sort of crazy video editing or massive workloads. It's quite literally just one of the only small form factor tablets still around that actually has a high level of performance. And by comparison, that isn't to say this iPad Mini isn't powerful by any means. Despite not having one of those newer M series chips, it still shreds through just about every single daily task you might need. But honestly, just like the iPhone Mini lineup, not only does this iPad still shred through all those daily tasks, it also has a really devoted following. As a wannabe minimalist, this iPad is simply the perfect companion for whenever I nerf my phone into a minimalist setup, or even the odd time I downgrade completely to a flip phone. For me at least, there's a higher sense of freedom when I can just leave my phone aside when I am home and just have my iPad with me. And honestly, that could just be all in my head, where I simply like the fact that I can disconnect from the day job or whatever else and still have some sort of sense of good connectivity. Either way, I really do love it. Not to mention the Apple Pencil support with this iPad is simply incredible. Despite no longer being the newest setup, it doesn't have pressure sensitivity or barrel rolling or any of that you might find on the new iPad Pros, but it is still an incredible pencil setup. The thing is, this is absolutely not sponsored at all, but I'm still an absolute fanboy when it comes to paper-like screen protectors. They simply add so much to the experience for anybody who is using an Apple Pencil. For myself at least, I use this every day, all day, when it comes down to my day job, writing rough videos in freeform, and any quick notes I might have through the day. And from a portability standpoint as well, this tiny slab of metal does have an 8.3-inch display on it that still holds up incredibly well. It functions well, it looks good, and it has a peak brightness of 500 nits. Sure, it doesn't have the new 120Hz ProMotion and all that, but for most people who are just doing daily tasks, this is more than sufficient. And obviously, this stands absolutely no chance against something like the new OLED screens on the M4 iPads, but in reality, like I mentioned, for most people, this display is beyond adequate, even for somebody like myself who loves those OLED displays. The brightness is plenty enough, the bezels are super thin, but also well-sized enough that you still have something to hold while using this tablet. And I can say one of the main reasons why I'm even reading in the first place is the fact that the iPad Mini exists. Not to mention, this tablet is one-handable and pocketable completely, which is one of the main things that's alluring about it. And sure, while this tablet's almost 3 years old at this point, in terms of performance, it really is no pushover. When there is a new release, like the M2 chip in the iPad Air lineup or the M4 in the Pro lineup, that doesn't automatically mean the A15 in this tablet is bad by any means. This same chip honestly simply shreds through just about any and all daily stuff, like browsing the web, watching content, note-taking, and even multitasking wherever you need to. At no point whatsoever over the last couple years have I ever felt my iPad Mini 6 was inadequate for those daily tasks. With that though, there are going to be a couple things like Final Cut Pro missing on the iPad Mini, but again, that's a part of the charm of this iPad. It's not trying to be a computer replacement with Final Cut Pro. Even still, there are things like Apple Intelligence I really do wish was on this iPad Mini, but there's just simply not enough power there. Is that a deal breaker when it comes down to the iPad Mini? Honestly, that's sort of going to be up to you and what you need in your iPad. For me at least, for everything that I do, it's an incredible powerhouse. Even for the odd times where I actually do game on my tablet, my go-to is TrueSkate, which is always a fun time. And wildly enough, despite not being as fluid as the M4 iPad Pro in terms of the screen and stuff, everything I can say is almost near as instant as on that iPad than this 3-year-old iPad. I think that honestly comes down to how well optimized iPadOS is, and I'm definitely here for it. And really, honestly, it's easy to forget this iPad has a rear camera and all. While I personally rarely use the camera on here outside of scanning documents or taking photos of receipts, it's there if you do need it, and it does a decent enough job. Compared to the rear camera though, one thing I really do use a lot on this iPad is the front camera, especially when it comes down to FaceTime with friends or family. And center stage really is a wow feature for a lot of people whenever I am on a call with them. And I will say too, since this iPad follows me everywhere I go, the times I'm not using using my iPhone, the speakers on here are simply brilliant. For whatever it might be, whether it's a music companion while working, listening to music while I'm in the shower, it still sounds awesome. The microphone on here is great as well for whenever I'm writing music. For me at least, it's just fun to write music even if nobody else is going to hear it. Still, I love to use the microphone on here for whenever I am tuning my guitar or just throwing down a riff that I don't want to forget. Honestly, it's just all of these small things that add up to make a damn good experience. As for some of my other everyday usage, this tablet truly branches off into just about every single aspect of my daily life. Something as simple as just transferring all the photos off my camera to my iPad for quick edits, or watching shows while getting in some exercise at the gym, reading books while I'm in bed, and a lot of other things. For myself at least, I do still attempt to practice digital minimalism despite being pretty bad at it. I try to keep all of my apps to one single page, and that seems to do it for me. I've got YouTube and YouTube Analytics for all my creative stuff. I also love Apple Freeform with the Apple Pencil for fleshing out all of my video ideas, so that pretty much covers me for anything creative. I use Outlook and Teams during my work hours for my day job, ChatGPT because it's really useful, and Google, which is actually surprisingly a great source of tech news, which I really grown to appreciate over time. Apart from that, of course, I just have two widgets here, one for my music and one for my daily calendar. And then there's just the everyday tools like notes and files and photos, and my most recent favorite, which has been the Apple Books app, which is again the only reason I read whatsoever, so 10 out of 10 application, thank you Apple and iPad mini 6. With that, again, it's kind of crazy to see how well the iPad mini 6 performs 3 years down the road. And I can easily say, despite having an M4 iPad Pro, as much as I love that device, if I had to choose between that and my iPad mini 6, easily, hands down, I would be choosing my iPad mini 6 since it is still my favorite. If you have an iPad mini 6 and you're wondering if you should upgrade if they announce a new one next week, first things first is take a deep breath and then go rewatch the keynote for the iPad mini 6 because that usually gets me pumped about tech I already have. Apple is really good at convincing people that their products are the best, so this one's no different. Second thing, honestly, just change your wallpaper. That sort of keeps things feeling a little bit more fresh, and maybe swap around the way your apps are set up on your homepage. Now, if you've done that already, if you're like me, and I'm being 100% honest, if they announce an iPad mini 7, I'm buying that shit immediately. Look, if anybody appreciates the iPad mini 6 as much as I do, everyone knows this is a very long-awaited upgrade that everybody sort of wants on the iPad mini 6 because it just is that, it's the only option, rather. There's no other small tablet that performs as well as the mini 6, and so naturally we're all gonna be hyped for a mini 7. So I don't blame you if you want to upgrade, do all those other things I mentioned, watch the keynote, change your wallpaper, swap your apps around, then buy the Mini 7. For me at least, this tablet is the absolute most impactful piece of tech for my everyday life, more than my M4 iPad Pro, more than my iPhone even. Like I mentioned, sometimes I'm using a flip phone because I want to disconnect, and I still happily have my iPad mini next to me. But let me know what you guys think. Maybe I'm just that weirdo who's infatuated with smaller, older tech, or the iPad mini 6 really is just that badass. Anyways, I appreciate you watching till the end. If you enjoyed the video, please consider subbing and liking the video. It does go a long way. I will catch you in the next one. Peace.